The Summers family recently had a spotlight in the episodes of X-Men 97, but what many don't know is that in the comics, they are a very complex family, and that's the theme for today. Stay until the end of the video to get to know who the main members of this family are in the main Marvel Universe. Christopher Summers. He was a major in the U.S. Air Force, who adopted the name Corsair as a homage to the movies he watched as a child. One day, returning from a trip with his wife, Catherine, and their two sons, Scott and Alex, their plane was intercepted by an alien aircraft, which began to open fire. With only one parachute on board, Catherine placed it on Scott, who was holding his younger brother, and pushed them out of the hatch. Chris and Catherine watched in horror as a shot from the unknown ship hit the parachute. The couple prepared for their end when the ship abducted them. It was a Shi'ar reconnaissance ship, whose crew captured Christopher and Catherine. They were separated, with him becoming a slave. Believing their two children were dead, he focused all his energies on escaping and rescuing his wife. Christopher managed to escape from his prison and found Catherine in bed with the Shi'ar Emperor Ken, who apparently kept her as one of his mistresses. He tried to intervene but was immediately detained by the guards, and as punishment, Ken took Catherine's life in front of her husband, and even though she did not know she was pregnant, her baby was taken by the Shi'ar Empire. Alex Summers. Alex Summers is the youngest son. During the plane crash, when the two jumped, the parachute worked perfectly, but started to catch fire. Miraculously, despite the burning parachute, the children managed to land without serious injuries and were saved by people in the area. The boys were taken to the hospital, and then to an orphanage in Nebraska with Michael Milbury as the director, who was actually Mr. Sinister in disguise. Alex, being younger, was soon adopted by an English family, the Blandings, and did everything to play his role as a son. Apparently, Sinister facilitated Alex's departure to make Scott more emotionally vulnerable. At the age of 13, he was forced by Mr. Sinister to find out the extent of his powers. At that moment, he discovered his mutant gifts, which consist of plasma blasts that can be emitted from his entire body. Unlike his brother, he can control his powers after receiving extensive training. Alex Summers, the Destructor, has been part of the X-Men team and has appeared in adaptations such as X-Men Evolution. In the movies, he was portrayed as the older brother of Cyclops. Scott Summers. Cyclops is the most well-known member of the Summers family. On the day of the plane accident, Scott suffered a head injury upon landing, which damaged the part of Scott's brain that would have allowed him to control his optic blasts. Scott and Alex were hospitalized, and both suffered traumatic amnesia about the incident. Mr. Sinister had an interest in the boys. He believed Scott was the Summers brother with the greatest potential, so he separated them. In adolescence, Scott began to suffer from severe headaches and was sent to a specialist who provided him with ruby quartz lenses, this specialist being Mr. Sinister. Later on, Scott was rescued by Professor Xavier as the first member of the X-Men, a team of young mutants trained to use their powers in Professor Xavier's dream of equality between humans and mutants. Before we continue, if you are a fan of the X-Men and want to know more about the mutant team, leave a like on the video and subscribe to the channel. Every day you will receive videos with information taken directly from the comics, the original media of the stories. Gabriel Summers, better known as Vulcan, is considered an Omega-level mutant. His abilities lie in absorbing and manipulating any type of energy, being able to control the energy of Adam Warlock and even his brothers. The young Gabriel was aged to adolescence through a Shi'ar incubator after being removed from his mother's body. His age was accelerated to puberty to join the slave horde and be close to his mutant powers blossoming. An old and kindly Shi'ar named Diandril took care of him and gave him an Earth book about Roman mythology, a book that Gabriel read and reread hundreds of times. In this book, he met Vulcan, the god of fire, a name he would later use as a codename. Gabriel accidentally fatally injured Diandril when his mutant powers emerged. He tried to escape but was sent to Earth to serve as a slave to Davan Shakari, the Shi'ar Empire's spy on the planet. Gabriel managed to escape and went to live in the sewers of New York, was found by police and taken in by Moira MacTaggart, who decided to teach him how to control his powers. Moira's team had already heard of the X-Men's exploits, and Gabriel was excited when he met and trained with the X-Men leader Cyclops. Charles had noticed a similarity between Cyclops and Vulcan's mental patterns, realizing the relationship between them. Gabriel was very happy when overhearing that Charles was interested in recruiting him for the X-Men. But after being put in suspended animation by a mistake of Charles Xavier, Vulcan was considered dead for a long time until the events of M-Day, where after Scarlet Witch removed all mutant powers in House of M, it generated a disturbance in Vulcan's powers, which awakened and returned more powerful than before, with a desire for revenge against Professor X. Vulcan enters into conflict with the X-Men, including fighting against his brother Cyclops, and fatally wounds Banshee. After that, Gabriel Summers heads towards the Shi'ar Empire, where he attacks Empress Lilandra. His father, Corsair, tries to stop him but is killed by Vulcan. He soon became Emperor of the Shi'ar Empire and declared himself an enemy of the X-Men. Nathan Summers. The fate of Nathan Christopher Charles Summers was planned before his parents even met. The geneticist Mr. Sinister discovered that a union between the X-Men Scott Summers and Jean Grey would produce a genetically superior powerful mutant. Sinister hoped to control such a mutant and use it to defeat his immortal adversary Apocalypse. Cable is a time traveler. He goes back to the past before his birth to stop Apocalypse but was infected by the techno-organic virus. Like his father, he can release energy blasts, as well as having telepathy and telekinesis. Unfortunately, the techno-organic virus prevents him from further developing his powers. Rachel Summers. Also considered Omega level, Rachel is the daughter of Jean Grey and Cyclops from another reality, where almost all mutants on the planet were killed by Sentinels, an event that occurred in the X-Men comics days of future past. She was incorporated into the Marvel 616 universe, where in the absence of her mother, she used the name Marvel Girl, and also had some of the Phoenix Force powers. Rachel inherited her mother's telepathic and telekinetic powers, and her father's energy blasts, but she releases them through her hands. In addition, she has strong ties to her brother Nathan Summers, Cable. Hope Summers. When Scarlet Witch uttered the words "No more mutants," about 90% of the mutant population lost their X gene on the day known as M-Day. But the most worrying thing is that since then, no mutants have been born, making mutants an endangered species. However, months after M-Day, Professor X searched for new mutants with Cerebro. He soon found a single mutant birth manifestation. This mutant was so powerful that the mere manifestation of her birth caused damage to Cerebro and other electrical equipment in the Xavier Institute. Cable rescues her from an attack and sends her to the future, where he takes care of her as a father and trains her. When they return to the present time, Hope was considered by many mutants as a messiah, while also being considered by others as the destroyer of the mutant race. This was widely discussed in Avengers vs. X-Men, where she became the Phoenix Force bearer and turned into the White Phoenix, reviving the X gene of all mutants on the planet. Among her abilities, she can copy other mutants' powers using her mind. Nate Gray. Nathaniel Gray, the X-Man, was created by Mr. Sinister in the alternative reality of Age of Apocalypse as a countermeasure against Apocalypse. Nate later ended up on Earth 616 and became important in the Massacre Saga. Essentially, he is what Cable would be without the techno-organic virus, and also an Omega-level mutant. There are several other Summers in parallel realities, but these are the main ones from Marvel's Earth 616, the main universe of the stories. Now I want to know your opinion. Did you know all these characters? Who is your favorite from the Summers family? Write in the comments, like the video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications to stay informed about everything happening in DC and Marvel. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.